Ammonite is a British film written and directed by Francis Lee, and it's the first of his movies that I've seen. Normally when I review a movie, I tend to list a load of films that it reminded me of, but I'm not going to do that so much here. The day before I watched this film, I saw a French film which the English title is Portrait of a Lady on Fire, and it's quite amazing how similar these two films are. I mean, you have two women and there's a mother who's sort of in the background and they're walking on the beach and they both have affections for one another, which grows gradually throughout the movie. And, well, I could keep going on with quite a few noticeable similarities, actually. Well, one thing I did notice in both the films was the lack of music. It's funny, actually, I'm writing an essay at the moment where I'm praising the somewhat melodramatic use of music in Kenneth Branagh's film version of Hamlet. But it seems that, I don't know if it's a fashion right now to not have this kind of orchestral, extra diegetic music always playing in the background. But it's just something I've noticed now in a few more modern films. What this does, I think, without the music, it actually helps build the tension. You can hear every floorboard creaking, every door handle slowly turning, the fire crackling, bed sheets folding, and so on. I think it really helps to build the tension. And that's one of the best things about this film, or even both films, is that tension. Of course, it's largely sexual tension in these films, but it's something that gradually builds throughout the movie. It's not gratuitous. Focusing really now just on Ammonite, the historical setting is really realistic. I mean, you get transported back into the... it's quite simple sets, but you get transported back into this time, but also into the setting as well in Dorset. It's on the coast of Regis. You can really feel the wind and the cold and the pebble shore and all that. And I really wish actually I had been able to see this at the cinema, because I probably would have been completely transported, immersed in the film, with all, obviously the big screen and the sound effects and the darkness around and so on. So the film is set in Dorset, in Lyme Regis, in the 1840s, so the early Victorian period. This is I think the same time roughly of the novel Wuthering Heights, or at least when that was written, and Jane Eyre as well. Now, last year, actually, it did remind me of a novel, or even a film as well, The French Lieutenant's Woman by John Fowles, which was written in the 1960s, but I read that. I had to read it for university last semester. I also watched the film, and there was a scene at the beginning of this film where I thought, oh, that's reminds me of The French Lieutenant's Woman. That's from the film there, was 1981. But you get these classic scenes again in this film with the Cobb and the Jurassic coast. In fact, this is the same county that I was born in, and Dorset is a great setting for films. I can't think of too many films at the moment that were set in Dorset, but I suppose any Thomas Hardy book or novel adaptations, such as Far from the Madding Crowd, are often set in Dorset. A friend of mine reviewed this film, and I might leave a link to his blog actually in the description below if he allows me to. But he described this film as exquisite, and I think that's a really good choice of word. That obviously made me quite excited to see the film, but I have to agree that's an excellent one-word description of the film. Exquisite. Now, I'm not going to say too much about the cast. I don't normally say too much about the cast, but I do really like Saoirse Ronan. Great performance, as usual, and Kate Winslet is also very good. I'm not a big huge fan of Kate Winslet. Funnily enough, she's in that Hamlet film that I mentioned earlier, playing Ophelia. But I do really like Saoirse Ronan. Saoirse Ronan. I still can't pronounce her name properly. And I got a bit of stick, actually, in the Little Women review, where I really made it sound like I never heard of her, never seen her before. I just couldn't quite I couldn't think how to pronounce her name, and I couldn't even think of what her name was actually at the time. And rather sort of forgot all sorts of things when I did that review. But there were a lot of films of hers that I had not seen. I was quite a bit behind on my film reviewing, or film watching rather. And I have actually caught up now. I've seen quite a lot of her films in the last few months. But this is really just another really good performance. So really, for me, this film works. It transported me back in time and into a different place. And for my last point, in reference to, again, Little Women, in that review, when I mentioned that feminism had been done well, and there is a definite feminist message here. There's a reference to being like a bird in a cage, to women being frail, or, the weaker sex, undermined. Academically, that's an important thing to remember. And it presents the issues of the time without distorting history. After all, it is a biopic of this paleontologist. And it presents feminism, but not in a sort of overly conspicuous way. So it doesn't feel like you've been sort of force-fed some political agenda or something like that. It's simply giving us some form of forgotten history. We ought to remember this person. And I think that was well done. So that's basically my review. I think that's about it. Check the description below for that link. And see you next time. Goodbye.